They say joy is loud, that when real happiness enters a room, it fills the air, sticks to your skin like summer heat, leaves no space untouched. That night, I heard joy like thunder. Plates clinked, champagne popped, someone dropped a glass in shock and no one even noticed. The house vibrated under the weight of it. Megan stood in the center of the living room, her hand resting just above her waistline. Her voice didn't tremble. She didn't pause for suspense. "I'm pregnant," she said. And just like that, the roles were cast. The room burst, not in confusion or hesitation, but in immediate celebration, as if they'd all known, as if they had been waiting for this moment like the final scene of a long play, and now the curtain had dropped and they could finally stand, clap, and cheer. "Oh my God!" her sister shouted, rushing forward, wrapping her arms around Megan. "Finally!" Someone else, her cousin, maybe, called out from the back. "About time!" More laughter. Cheers. A toast was raised. The noise kept climbing like a storm. I heard Megan's mother choking up, wiping her eyes. Her voice, trembling in awe, whispered, "A miracle at her age." Megan smiled at that. The word miracle pleased her. I stood still. I remember I had a paper plate in my hand, half full with food I'd made myself on the grill earlier. Megan liked when I handled the cooking for these things. Said it made me look comfortable. I told myself it made me useful. The plate tilted slightly. I didn't even feel it, but the baked beans slid over the edge, a dark brown smear dripping onto the hardwood. I bent to wipe it with a napkin, slowly, carefully. No one noticed, or if they did, they pretended not to. I wasn't surprised by the announcement. I was surprised by how unsurprised everyone else was. That was the first clue. They had known. Her family, her friends, maybe even Logan, my stepson. The secret had been shared and passed around, wrapped like a gift they couldn't wait to open in front of me. My presence wasn't required for the planning, only for the reaction, for the optics. A man clapped me on the back. Megan's uncle, I think. "Congrats, Mike," he said, like the word had no weight. "Better late than never, huh?" I gave him the smile I always give, the quiet one, the kind you offer when the only other option is violence. Megan was glowing, the glow they talk about in magazines. She had spent the day getting ready, hair done, nails polished, a dress that hugged her carefully, subtly, not too tight, not too obvious, just enough to draw the eye and deliver the news with her body before her mouth even opened. I stood behind her as she thanked people for coming, as she received hugs, as the champagne flowed, as someone brought out a cake no one had mentioned. "It's not even your birthday," they laughed, and she only smiled. That's when Logan stepped forward. He had been quiet until then, perched on the couch with a beer bottle and the bored posture of a 20-year-old who thinks he's the smartest person in the room. He was wearing that Godawful designer hoodie I bought him last Christmas, the one he never thanked me for. He didn't speak to Megan. He turned to the room. He lifted his drink slightly, as if in toast. His voice was clear, not loud but deliberate. "Well, let's hope this one gets a real dad," he said. "Not just some imposter who pays the bills." Silence. Not for long. Just a second. A single beat of stunned quiet before the laughter returned. Louder now, almost grateful for the release. A few people chuckled like he'd told a harmless joke. One of Megan's brothers nodded, muttering, "Fair point." Someone repeated the line under their breath like a punchline. "Imposter who pays the bills." Caught on fast. I didn't speak. I didn't move. The laughter wasn't spontaneous. I saw it in their faces, in the way they exchanged glances, the way some avoided my eyes, the way others smirked with the comfort of people who know the truth's finally been said out loud. This wasn't a slip. This wasn't some reckless joke. This had been rehearsed. Logan's words were a scalpel carefully chosen. And he wasn't talking to me. He was talking about me, as if I wasn't there. As if my presence in the room was a formality, a body occupying space but offering nothing of value. I looked at Megan. She didn't correct him. She didn't flinch. She kept smiling. Maybe that was the worst part. Not the words I'd heard worse. Not the laughter I'd endured more. It was her silence. The fact that she let it stand. That she allowed it to live there in the middle of our home, unchallenged. You learn a lot about someone in their silence. Megan's was deafening. Logan slouched back on the couch, satisfied. Megan's mother kissed her cheek again and whispered something in her ear that made her laugh. The cake was being cut. Plates passed around. Megan was pulled into another conversation about nursery themes and baby names. No one asked me how I felt. No one looked at me like a man whose life had just been rewritten in real time, in front of an audience who knew the new script before he did. I looked down at my hands, still holding the crumpled napkin from earlier, still clutching that paper plate like it was going to anchor me to the floor. This was my home, my kitchen, my dining table, my grill out back still hot, the speakers playing music, mine, the lights, the flooring, the roof, all paid for by me. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every upgrade over the last 7 years. I'd bled into this house. And in one sentence, Logan had declared I was never part of it. Just a caretaker, a stand-in, an imposter who paid the bills. And they all agreed. No one had to say it. I saw it in their eyes, in the way they looked past me, around me, through me. The child Megan carried wasn't mine. Not in spirit, not in name, not in the eyes of the family who cheered for her. I wasn't being offered a new beginning. I was being erased. It wasn't the beginning of a family. It was the beginning of roles. Mine had been written for me. The provider, the background figure, the man who steps aside when the real decisions begin. Placeholder. A man remembered only when the checks stopped coming. And I realized, as the party roared on without me, that I had just been moved to the edge of my own life. Not with malice, but with surgical precision. They hadn't exiled me with shouts. They had done it with applause. I stayed behind, cleaning plates that weren't mine, scraping frosting off tiles I hadn't asked to be decorated, gathering empty glasses left under chairs and behind couches. Logan had disappeared upstairs, no doubt proud of the grenade he'd thrown into the center of the room. Megan was glowing still, the kind of glow that comes not from joy, but from validation. A woman freshly crowned. She didn't help clean. None of them did. As I moved through the house, our house, the evidence of what had happened lingered in the air. The chairs still angled toward where Megan had made her announcement. The folded napkins someone had brought, pink and white, already stained with cake and wine. Laughter still echoed off the walls like it was trapped there. I found myself wiping down the kitchen counter for the third time in the same spot. Not because it was dirty, but because it gave me something to do with my hands. Megan walked in. She was barefoot, one hand on her stomach now with intention. Like she wanted everyone, even the walls, to know what grew inside her. I didn't look at her. I was still holding the sponge. My knuckles were white. I didn't know they were going to make such a big deal, she said. Her voice was calm, light, not guilty, not apologetic. I said nothing. She reached for a bottle of water from the fridge and opened it slowly. Drank. Then, without turning to me, she added, "You shouldn't take it so personally. Logan was joking." I looked up then. Was he? She paused. A flicker, just a flicker, of something crossed her face. Doubt maybe, or realization. That brief moment where someone recognizes they've crossed a line and decides they don't care. "Don't make this about you," she said. Not cold, not sharp, just definitive. And there it was. The verdict. The sentence had already been written. I just hadn't been allowed to read it yet. That night, she curled into bed like nothing had shifted, like our foundation hadn't cracked under her silence. She didn't touch me. She didn't speak. She was already gone, curled around something new. And I lay beside her, eyes open in the dark, counting everything I'd ever given this family. Everything that was now irrelevant. The next morning was quieter. Not peaceful, just quieter. The kind of silence that follows something unspoken. Logan came down for breakfast, grabbed a protein bar, and made a point to walk past me without so much as a glance. Megan sat at the table. Coffee. One hand on her phone. The other absent-mindedly stroking her stomach again, like it was a talisman. I sat across from her. She didn't look up. "I have a question," I said slowly. "Are we planning this together?" She looked confused. "Planning what?" "The baby." She blinked, as if I'd asked something absurd. "Of course we're planning it." "No," I said. "Are we planning it?" That landed. I watched her shoulders tighten. She set the phone down, finally met my eyes. "Michael," she said, and I already knew what was coming, because when Megan said my name like that, it meant she had already made her decision and was now writing the footnote. "This isn't about you. You're making it about you. I've been paying for Logan's college, his car, his insurance, his rent," I said, "and I've never once been asked how I feel about any of it." She didn't deny it. She didn't even look guilty. "This isn't the same," she said. "This is about family. You're either with us or you're not." That was when I knew. With us. Not part of us. Not this affects both of us. Not even let's talk. With us meaning her, Logan, and the baby. Meaning I was being asked to stand beside the family, not within it. My role had been recast. Not as father. Not as partner. As sponsor. I nodded once. Understood. She looked relieved. That's what broke me. That nod, my silent surrender, brought her relief. Preparations moved fast after that. Megan's days filled with appointments, online forums, baby registries. She was efficient, decisive, animated in a way I hadn't seen in years. Her phone rang constantly, her sister, her mother, her friends. She spoke about cribs and midwives and ultrasound dates with a kind of breathless enthusiasm I had never been included in. I waited for her to ask if I wanted to come to one of the appointments. She didn't. Logan started referring to the baby as his sibling, not our baby, not even the baby. Always my brother, or my sister. Even though we didn't know the gender yet. I caught him once on the phone with a friend, saying, "Mom's having another kid. Yeah, finally a real dad will be around." He didn't know I was in the room. He didn't care. I sat in the study that weekend reviewing finances. Not because anyone had asked me to, but because they hadn't. The clinic bills had started coming in already. Blood work, checkups, deposits for delivery packages. All in Megan's name. But the invoices were CC'd to me. A courtesy, not a request. I looked through our shared accounts. Her name was on all of them. Not because I trusted her blindly, but because trust had never been part of our conversation. It had been the default. I made the payments, quietly, without complaint, but something shifted in me that week. A kind of dull pressure, like a bruise under the skin that hadn't surfaced yet. I didn't speak about it. I didn't argue. I didn't demand. Because I already knew what my voice was worth in this house. It was tolerated, not invited. Then came the conversation that cemented it. It was Thursday, early evening. Megan had just returned from another doctor's visit. She came in glowing again, that practice kind of glow, like she had seen it in a movie and was determined to live it frame by frame. She tossed her keys on the counter and said, without looking at me, "We're thinking of naming the baby Elijah. Or maybe Hazel. What do you think?" We're thinking. I was so stunned I forgot to respond. Not because of the names, but because she'd made the offer so late in the game. Like a boss inviting a janitor to vote on office paint color. "I think," I said slowly, "that I didn't know we were deciding without me." She looked up sharply. Her tone changed. "I'm the one carrying the baby. I'm the one whose body is. I'm the one paying the bills," I said, quietly, not to win, just to balance the weight. That was the last time we had a real conversation about the pregnancy. The final blow didn't come with shouting. It never does. Came on a Monday. Logan had come downstairs late. Megan was on the couch, browsing a baby name site. I was making coffee. He passed me without a word. Opened the fridge. Closed it. Turned to Megan. "Mom, make sure he doesn't come to the hospital. Okay. I don't want this to be awkward." Megan didn't even look at me. She just said, "Of course. He won't." That was it. That was the moment I left the conversation. That was the moment I stopped being a part of the plan. Not a word was said to me. Not an apology. Not a justification. Just a single line in response to a request. And the confirmation that I was no longer part of the family I had supported. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. Because by then I knew. I had already made the decision in my silence. Let them plan without me. Let them name the child, decorate the nursery, book the appointments, build their version of a family. Let them believe the man in the background would keep paying for the lights to stay on. Let them assume that my silence meant compliance. Because soon the real silence would begin. And this time it would be mine. Silence is a language people underestimate. They think it means weakness, confusion, submission. But silence, when chosen, is preparation. It is the moment a man stops explaining himself and starts counting. I didn't announce anything. I didn't threaten. I didn't warn. I simply began moving through my days with intention, while the house buzzed with plans that no longer included me. Megan talked constantly, to her mother, to her sister, to strangers online. She spoke in timelines now, weeks, trimesters, milestones. She wrote lists and taped them to the fridge. Prenatal vitamins, new furniture, appointments circled in red ink. Everything urgent, everything assumed. Logan strutted through the house like he'd won something. He talked about the baby as if it were already proof he'd been right all along. Proof that I'd always been temporary. And I nodded when spoken to, answered when required, paid attention to what mattered. Not their words, their dependencies. I started with documents. Quiet evenings in my study, door closed, light low. I reviewed accounts I hadn't looked at closely in years. Subscriptions, automatic transfers, insurance policies, everything that flowed invisibly from me into their lives, month after month, without ceremony. Logan's phone bill, in my name. The car insurance, in my name. Megan's shared account, funded almost entirely by my deposits. Even the clinic handling her prenatal care had my information listed as primary payer. Not because anyone had asked, because it had always been that way. Because silence for years had been mistaken for consent. I didn't rush. I didn't act in anger. I took notes, screenshots, dates. Then I began changing things. One account at a time. No arguments. No dramatic gestures. Just adjustments. Permissions revoked. Payment methods updated. Automatic renewals disabled. I rerouted funds into accounts only I could access. I didn't hide money. I reclaimed it. The house didn't notice at first. Why would it? The lights were still on. The fridge was still full. Megan was still glowing. Logan was still smug. I continued paying the mortgage. Utilities. Groceries. Not out of generosity, out of precision. I wasn't leaving yet. I wasn't disappearing. I was redefining boundaries they'd assumed didn't exist. They talked about nursery colors one evening while I sat in the same room, reviewing emails on my laptop. Megan laughed at something Logan said about finally having a normal family. She didn't look at me when she said, "This is going to change everything." She was right. The clinic email came 3 days later. I saw it first. A generic subject line. No emotion. Just a system doing what systems do when something no longer adds up. Payment authorization failed. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit. Watched the notification icon glow on my screen while Megan paced the kitchen on the phone, discussing baby monitors with her sister. I finished my coffee. Then I closed the laptop. An hour later, the phone rang. The house had been loud until then. Music playing, Megan humming, Logan on speaker with friends. The ring cut through it all, sharp and insistent. Megan answered. "Yes, this is she," she said, distracted, already turning away as if the call were a formality. Her tone changed halfway through the sentence. "Oh, I see." She sat down. Logan muted his phone. Watched her. Yes, I understand," she said slowly. "There must be a mistake. He always." Pause. Her eyes lifted. "Found me. I didn't move." "Yes," she finished quietly. "Thank you." She hung up. For the first time since the announcement, the house went completely still. "What was that?" Logan asked. Megan swallowed. Her voice was thin. The clinic. They said the payment didn't go through. All of it. The deposit. The tests. Everything. Logan looked at me then. Not smug. Not amused. Confused. Did you mess something up? He asked. I stood. Calm. Slow. No, I said. I corrected it. Megan stared. What does that mean? It means, I said, that I stopped paying for things I'm not allowed to be part of. Her face flushed. You can't just, this isn't about you. It never is, I replied. Logan scoffed, standing now. This is petty. You're doing this because of a joke. I looked at him. Really looked at him. You called me an imposter. You told the room I wasn't a father. Your mother agreed. I listened. Megan stood abruptly. This is cruel. You're trying to punish us. No, I said. I'm stepping out of a role you made very clear I don't occupy. Silence again. Thicker this time. Heavier. Logan's confidence cracked first. So what? You're just not going to help anymore? I already have, I said. For years. Past the point of respect. Megan's voice shook. This is your child too. I shook my head once. No, it's your child. And Logan's sibling. You made that clear. The room felt smaller then. Walls closer. The future they'd been planning suddenly required something they hadn't prepared for. Responsibility. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't insult them. Didn't need to. Because the truth had arrived without drama. Carried by a single phone call and a declined payment. And for the first time since that night, they understood something I'd known all along. I had never been an imposter. I had been the foundation. And foundations don't announce when they withdraw. They simply stop holding everything up. It never does, not in a house built on routine and expectation. Silence is only powerful when people are still adjusting to it. But once the panic sets in, once they realize the silence means absence, not pause, the noise comes back in force. And that's what happened. The phone call from the clinic shattered whatever fantasy Megan had been clinging to. No amount of whiteboards, Pinterest mood boards, or pastel-colored shopping carts could cover the fact that the scaffolding beneath her dream was gone. No warning. Just gone. She made 3 calls that night. 1 to the clinic to double-check to ask if it had really been declined. 1 to her mother, soft-spoken, tearful, a tone carefully calibrated for pity. And 1 to me. I was upstairs in my study. The door was closed. I heard her voice through it. Michael, we need to talk. I didn't respond. We had already talked, just not with words. And what was there left to discuss? The bills had spoken. The house had voted. The child had already been claimed, publicly and loudly, by everyone except the one who was expected to pay for it. I let her stand outside that door for a full minute. Then I opened it. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but in presence. In posture. She had always carried herself like someone who moved the pieces. But tonight, she looked like someone trying to gather pieces that no longer belonged to her. Her voice was calm, practiced. I just need to understand what you're doing. I leaned against the doorframe, said nothing. She continued, you know this doesn't just affect me. This affects the baby. I nodded once. I know. Then why are you doing this? She asked, not pleading, not yet, but trying to find some leverage in me. Some lever she could still pull. I'm not doing anything, I said. I just stopped doing everything. She crossed her arms. Because of what Logan said? That's childish. I raised an eyebrow. No, it's because of what you didn't say. That landed. She shifted her weight. Eyes darted. I'm not responsible for everything my son says. No, I replied. But you're responsible for what you let him say without correction. For what you let sit in the air like truth. You're punishing me, she snapped. You're punishing him. I stepped forward slightly. Not threatening. Just enough to bring weight into the space between us. For 7 years, I said slowly. I paid for Logan's education, his car, his rent. I supported every need, every whim, every bill that came across this table. I was a father in every way but biology. She said nothing. And then, The moment you had something of your own, something not connected to me, you let him erase me. Michael, she said, a whisper now. You let him say I was nothing, I said. You agreed with your silence. You built a new family while standing on the shoulders of a man you refused to acknowledge. She shook her head. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. She opened her mouth again. Maybe to cry, maybe to argue, but I closed the door. Gently, not as a threat, as a decision. Let her sit with it. The days that followed exposed everything. The financial rupture began to ripple. The clinic sent another notice, this time via post. Logan's insurance lapsed. His car's monthly payment bounced. Even the Wi-Fi cut out one morning, and when Megan called the provider, they told her the account had been closed. Everything had my name on it. Everything they had assumed would continue, automatically, silently, had stopped. I moved through the house with the quiet authority of someone who had nothing left to explain. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't loud. I was absent even in my presence. A ghost in reverse. Solid, visible, but disconnected from the world around me. Logan didn't speak to me. He walked past me like I was a stranger, but I saw the cracks in him. The twitch in his jaw when his debit card failed. The frustration when his laptop froze and no one replaced it. The slow realization that the man he called an imposter had been the only one propping up his life. Megan tried to recover control. She made calls, looked for payment plans, tried to borrow from her family. But support was thin. Sympathy doesn't sign checks. One night, I came home late from work. She was sitting at the dining table, papers spread in front of her. Bills, letters, declined statements. Her eyes were red. I walked past her without stopping. Michael, she said quietly. I stopped. She didn't look up. I can't do this alone. I didn't answer. She lifted her head slowly. Please, just until the baby comes. Then we can figure everything out. I turned to her. Figure what out? Her voice cracked. How we fix this. You don't fix betrayal, I said. You acknowledge it. She stood suddenly. This isn't fair. I never asked you to leave. I never said you weren't part of this. You didn't have to, I said. You just let everyone else say it for you. She stared at me. This was never about the baby, I added. It was about what I meant to you, what I meant to Logan. And now, finally, you all get to live in that truth. Logan's panic came next. 2 days later, he knocked on the study door. It was the first time he'd approached me since the clinic call. I opened it. He stood there, arms crossed, face tight with restraint. I need to talk to you. I said nothing. He stepped in, swallowed. Look, I know what I said at the party. It was stupid. Still, I said nothing. He looked at the floor. I didn't think you'd actually stop everything. Because you didn't think I mattered, I said. No, he said quickly. I was angry. I was honest. I interrupted. You were honest. He stared at me. I leaned against the desk. You wanted me to know where I stood, and now you know where you stand. His shoulders dropped slightly. Can you just help us until the baby comes? I tilted my head. Help who? He blinked. Me, Mom, the baby, all of us. I walked past him, opened the door. He didn't move. You said I wasn't your father, I said. Now you get to see what life is like without one. And I left him standing there. The outcome revealed itself gradually, then all at once. The clinic put services on hold. Megan cried in the bedroom. Logan grew resentful not just toward me, but toward her. He started snapping at her, accusing her of not doing more. He had thought I was his shield, a wall he could insult, but one that would always stay up. And when the wall fell, the storm came in. Megan's family began pulling away too. The story didn't make sense to them. Why had I stopped paying? Why had I withdrawn? She couldn't explain it without admitting what Logan had said, without admitting what she hadn't. So she just cried, and the support withered. One evening, I came home and found the baby name lists crumpled on the counter. The nursery catalog sat unopened. The glow was gone. They had built a future on a man they didn't believe they needed. And now they were living in it. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel revenge. I felt clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you stop watering dead roots and accept that nothing will grow from them. I had loved them, truly. I had carried them. But love without respect is just servitude. And I had served long enough. So here's what I've learned. They called me an imposter when I gave everything. They called me cruel when I took it back. They cheered when I stood behind them. They panicked when I stepped away. And now I ask honestly, was I wrong? Would you have kept paying for a seat at a table where your name was never spoken with respect? Or would you have done what I did, stepped away, and let the silence speak for itself?